Hey, good morning. I'm Jana with Purl Together, and it's a lovely Saturday morning here in Southeast Wyoming. And I'm uploading a video today about the little tiny socks. I don't know what to call this, but you know, like when things are in a row and like you see the little flags that look like a pennant and there's a row of them. So maybe that's a garland. That seems like garland is associated with holiday kind of things. So maybe it's a bunting. But then when I think of bunting, I think of babies. Baby buntings. And I also think of like the crescent shaped things that they have on campaign stands or 4th of July stuff, that's like the red, white, and blue. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's a booty bunting. Sounds kind of wrong. I'll have to think of that. If you have an idea for the name of this, I don't know. Maybe we'll just call it a sock garland. I don't know. Well, anyway, I'll think of that. And I'm going to upload this as a free PDF to Ravelry and to my website. So if you want to make little teeny socks that you can, clothespin onto a line or put a paper clip through and hang it on your Christmas tree, they just make me happy. And it's a great way to use up socks, sock yarn. It's a great way to use up little tidbits for our scraptastic knit along. So each one takes 7 or 8 grams, depending on the weight of the yarn you're using. So what follows is a tutorial for that. But before we get started, there's a couple other things I really want to tell you about. First, I want to give a big hearty thank you and a shout out to 16 new patrons we've had in the last several weeks. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. To Carol, Elizabeth, Teresa, Megan, Cynthia, Yaya sister, Deborah, Lane, Tanya, Rhonda, Joy, Lynn, Crystal, Carol, another Carol, Donna, and Susan. Yay! Thank you so very much for supporting the channel. That helps me bring you videos as often as I can. So again, big hearty shout out to new patrons. If you want to see what I offer for a small monthly pledge, head over to patreon.com/Purl Together. You can see what's going on. It includes discounts on events and classes, knit togethers. We meet over Zoom at a certain tier pledge level. We meet 3 or 4 times a month. So go check that out. The other thing that I'm super excited about a lot of things today, but the other thing is that if you follow me on Instagram at Purl_together, you'll have seen this week a reel that I uploaded, and I've pinned that at the top of my Instagram page. So go check that out if you haven't, but I'm going to show you today. Look at them. Aren't they pretty? I am knitting the Radvent Throw by Amba O'Brien. So each one of these is blocked to 9.5, 10 inches. There will be 24 of these lovely things. And then I put it all together in a throw. And the contrasting, let's see, the yarn that I'll use to assemble the whole thing is this. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? So I have a couple of them soaking right now. I am on number 16. I can show you some of the rest of the colors if you want to see how it's all going to look. Isn't that cool? I have them numbered, so I'll remember how I did it. So that's going to be amazing. The reason I'm so excited about this is I'm going to raffle off this throw. I am making this Afghan as a fundraiser for a charity that's important to me. It's the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'll put a link down below if you want to read more about that. So each $10 donation to my fundraising drive receives 1 entry. So if you want to donate $20, you get 2 entries, etc. I am participating in the Out of the Darkness walk at the University of Wyoming in April. And so we're fundraising ahead of that event. So I'm going to be doing a walk for suicide prevention awareness. I'm also going to our local Capitol Day this coming week to request our legislators fund the 988 suicide prevention hotline. So if you're ever in crisis, dial 988. That's kind of a new thing in the last couple of years. It used to be 1-800 blah blah, and now it's 988. Anyway, if you're interested in a raffle to win this, go to the link down below. The drawing will be April 14th, which is the Sunday after my campus walk. Hopefully that makes sense. So watch my Instagram. I'm pretty excited about this. Okay, so there's that. And then all the little leftovers from each one of those. Look, my leftovers, aren't they cute? So I'm keeping them in there so that they're in order. And then maybe I'll make a Musselberg, another Musselberg, or some socks with my tidbits. I haven't decided yet. So I'm really excited about that. All of the yarn comes from an advent kit that I got from this company. This means frog in French. I'm not going to try to pronounce it because that won't go well. So I'm excited. But what follows today is this tutorial to make your teeny socks. So cute. Let's get started. So these 3 socks are all knitted with the same US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needle, but you can see they're somewhat different sizes, and that's just going to depend on the thickness and hardiness of the yarn. This one is a little bit of thinner fingering weight than these other 2, so that's fine. And I mean, I don't mind a little variety in my bunting, garland, bunting, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to show you how I knit these, and I'll write up the PDF and put it on Ravelry for download or on my website. Using the long tail cast on, or you could use it knitted cast on, or whatever makes you happy. But we're starting with 36 stitches. I like to do these on, like I said, a US size 2 or 2.75 millimeter needle. These particular needles it's a fixed circular, and it's from Brickhouse Fiber Arts, which is what you can see there on the engraving. I really like these. They're really pointy and really good for smaller work like this. They're made in the US, and I'll put a link down below in the video description if you're interested in getting a hold of one. They swivel a little bit on the cord, and it's a it's a coated stainless steel cable, so that's fantastic. So I take all of my cast on stitches about halfway down in the middle of, and then I count through halfway. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So I count half my stitches, and I'm just going to gently, I don't want to crimp my cable, but I'm just gently bending this enough so I can get half of my stitches on each side. Then I'll join in the round, and I'll show you my just down and dirty method of doing that. So this is the tail, and I have it coming off the needle that's closest to me. And I just lay that over the top of my first stitch on this needle, just lay that right over the top. And I pull my cable through here, and I, bend that around because I'm magic looping. I go in that first stitch as if to purl, and I just take the tail end of this and I wrap it opposite of how I normally would. So I wrap it clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So I think I was off screen a little bit there. I just wrap my tail counterclockwise around that needle and just push it through that first stitch. So now that's how I join in the round, and then I just tie a square knot, honestly. That's it. I just want these to be secure because I'm going to either like hang it on the Christmas tree, or I'm going to make like I said, a bunting and attach them all together in a nice little line. Okay, so I square knot that, and I'm just going to knit. My first round is just knit. Just knit your first round using the magic loop method. And if you haven't done magic loop before, you can certainly use little double points. You can also check out the link down below in the video description about how to magic loop. I have a video just for that, and a video just for joining in the round. I will put both of those things down below in the description box. So we're just going to knit the first round. Okay, I've knit one complete round. Now you have a choice. You can either purl around, knit another one, purl one, so that you'll end up with kind of an alternating garter stitch top like I have here, or you could just start knitting if you want to. And if you do that, you'll end up with a rolled top. So either way, it'll look just fine. I prefer not to have the roll, but you do what you'd rather. So all I'm going to do now is purl the next round, then knit one, then purl one. All right, so I'm just going to purl this next round. then knit one more, and purl one more. So that's the cast on in the first 4 rounds. All right, here's my lovely little start. Now I'm simply going to knit 20 rounds. Watch an episode of something on Netflix. You can knit it as long as you like. I just find that the 20, it seems to give me kind of a good proportion of leg to foot. So you can see what you think, but that's my kind of standard size. I finished my 20 rows, and now we're just going to do a simple heel flap and gusset. Nothing fancy. This is just for a decorative sock, and so we don't even need to bother with the slip stitch heel reinforcement. So I have finished a full round, and here's my beginning of the round marker, if you will. It's just the cast on tail. So what I'm going to do now is work backwards. I'm going to purl back on what I'm going to designate as the heel side. So rather than knitting back around the front here, we're going to leave these stitches to rest while we do our heel flap. So the first thing I'm going to do is slip the first stitch purlwise. That'll make a nice edge that we'll be able to see to pick up later. You'll see what I mean once we get started. Then I'm just going to purl back to the end of this half of the stitches. So slip the first stitch purlwise, and then purl 17 if you're doing the same cast on number as I am. Since we're just going to be working back and forth on this half of this sock, when you get to the end, we're just going to turn our work. Okay, turn your work over so now the right side is facing you. Slip the first stitch. We always slip the first stitch purlwise, and you'll see that that's going to make a nice edge. Slip the first stitch and knit back across. So, and we're just going to repeat these 2 rows until the heel flap is as long as we want it to be. And in this case, we have 18 stitches, so we're going to go ahead and do 18 rows. When you get to the last stitch, knit through the back loop, and that's going to turn that 180 degrees and make it open up and make it very visible when it's time to pick up. So again, we're working back and forth, and we have the purl side facing us. So we're going to slip the first stitch purlwise and purl 17. So you're always going to slip purlwise unless a pattern tells you otherwise. So purl all the way back. I don't bother counting my rows, and I'll show you why in just a moment. You're going to be able to see the stitches on the edges of your heel flap really clearly, and so you can just count those. And each one of those will be worth 2 rows because we slipped them. So when you slip a stitch and you slip this one up to the next row, that's how you know that each slip stitch is worth the equivalent of 2 rows of knitting. So again, slip the first stitch purlwise with yarn in back. Make sure the yarn's in the back, and knit across. And when we get to the end of the row on the knit side, the right side facing you, knit the last stitch through the back loop. Certainly refer to the written instructions as you're going along with me with this video. And again, the written instructions are down below. The link for the written instructions that you can print is down below in the video description box. Okay, knit through the back loop on the last. And now you can start to see we have these clearly defined edge stitches. So there's that kind of brownish one and a pink one, and then we're going to have another pink one right here. And on this side, you can see that we have kind of a dark pink one and a lighter pink one and an almost whitish one there. So back and forthing like that until we have 9 or 10. Let's go with 10 because we like even numbers. Slipped stitches that we can clearly count on the edge. Okay, I've finished knitting my tiny little heel flap, and let me show you the stitches on the side. Let me show you that so you can see the result of when we slip the first stitch and how that makes a nice edge. So I've done 9 or 10 slip stitch edges. You do count the one on the needle because you're going to slip that for the next one. So if we counted from the top back down for our slip stitches, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Right here is the first one. I'm not going to count this little one because when we bring this up, the white one will be the first one on our first knitted row in the round. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. First, though, we need to turn the heel, which is simply turning this bit so we can make it so we can knit the other direction. So if you look at this little sock, the heel flap is here, but I need to do a series of little short rows to turn and make the nice little cup for a baby heel. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is knit across to 2 stitches past the halfway mark. So because I have 18 stitches here, I'm going to knit to 9 and then 2 stitches past. So again, we're going to slip the first stitch as if to purl, as we have been. So that's 1, 2, okay, there's 9, that's halfway. All right, I've knitted across 9 stitches. Now I want to do 2 more. Then we're going to begin doing a decrease for our short row. So I'm going to slip, slip, knit. Slip 2 stitches individually as if to knit. So slip, slip, and then I'm going to knit through the back loop of those. And then knit 1. I have this all written out for you in the PDF. There's a link in the video description box, so don't worry. There's the decrease. There's my knit 1. Now I'm just going to turn my work so I have the purl side of the heel flap facing me. And we're going to go back the other way. Slip the first stitch as if to purl, and then purl 5. Now we'll do the same thing, purl 2 together, and purl 1. Okay, so what we've done is created the center of the back of the heel. And now we're going to continue going back and forth doing those decreases until we've used up all the stitches on the sides. So I have 4 stitches here and I have 4 stitches here, so that's good, that's symmetrical. So now I'm simply going to first slip the first stitch as if to purl, like we have been, knit across to where we made that gap. That gap was created when we turned our work after we did the knit 2 together, or sorry, slip, slip, knit, knit 1, which is here. You can see that by reading your knitting, and you can see that that's where that decrease was. And then, so here we're going to knit this one, and then we're going to slip, slip, knit so that we can close this gap. So slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit these stitches through the back loop, knit the next one. Okay, excellent. Turn your work, slip the first stitch as if to purl, and just purl your way across until you get to 1 stitch before that gap. By the way, this heel turn formula works for any size sock. This is how I do grown-up size socks as well. So here I am at the gap, and you guessed it, we're going to purl 2 together in order to close the gap. Purl 2 together, purl 1. And we're just going to continue doing this until we've used up the remaining stitches on each side. There's 2 left here and 2 left here. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. I'll do it with you. Slip as if to purl, knit across to the gap. And by the way, if you feel like I'm kind of going fast, you can always, watch this in slow motion. I have several videos on turning the heel that you can find on my channel. This is the same principle, like I said, regardless of the size of sock. So knit to 1 stitch before the gap, and then we're going to slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, and purl through the back loop of those 2. Knit 1. Okay, so we've used up all the stitches on this side. That's perfect. Turn to the purl side, slip as if to purl, and then just purl your way across, and we're going to close up that last gap, purl 1. Then we're going to be ready to pick up our side stitches from this heel flap and start knitting the gusset. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. Here we are, 1 stitch before the gap, purl 2 together, purl 1. Perfect. Now you can see we've got this nifty little turn. See that? Little turn. Isn't it cute? Yay. Now what we're going to do is knit back to the other side because we want to pick up the heel flap stitches on the left side to begin with. and then knit across the front and start knitting in the round again after we pick up the right side also. So go ahead and slip that first stitch again as if to purl. It's just going to keep a nice clean edge there because we don't want that garter stitch bump. So knit across to the other side, and then I'll show you what you're going to look for when you go pick up your heel flap edge stitches. You can use a tiny crochet hook for this. I just go ahead and use the knitting needles that I'm knitting with. First of all, because they're nice and pointy, and secondly, because I'm too lazy to go hunt for a crochet hook that would be small enough to do this. So I've knitted all the way across. All right, now let's take a look. You can see you need to, your knitting is going to want to automatically roll in, so you need to pull this back, and then you can plainly see those chain edge stitches. It kind of looks like a crochet chain, right? So first thing we're going to do is roll this back so that you can see the first one I'm going to aim for to pick up is this one that has this like little kind of a peach edge and a brown leg. We want to pick up both of those legs right here. You can go ahead and leave that needle in there if you want, and then just wrap as if you're knitting like normal and pull that through, being careful not to split the stitch below. Then pull that up and hang on to it because you're going to want to actually put it on this needle. So I don't usually do it that way. I just go in, roll this back with your left hand, go in underneath the next two legs of the next chain edge and just knit into it. Because you need to have, whoops, see I split that a little bit. You need to have these on the right hand needle, okay? So again, you're just going to go in under those two legs there and pull those through. Actually, I went in under 3 legs. There we go. So I like to aim for, let me zoom in here a little more for you. I like to aim for that tiny little hole right there and then roll that over. Get in under both of those legs, wrap your knit stitch like normal, and just go ahead and pull that through. And you can tell that I'm kind of going like this and I'm working the fabric. As we begin knitting in the round, if you find that you have an extra stitch or two, it's all right. If this were an actual sock to be worn, I would pick up an extra stitch in the corner so there wouldn't be a hole right here at this needle junction. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go under the strand right here and knit into the back of it. So I'm actually creating another stitch that's going to help bridge the gap between the side of the gusset here and the stitches across the instep or the top of the foot. Okay, so now I'm there, and what I want to do now, since I'm magic looping, I need to have my working needles be together, and I'm going to work across the 18 stitches I have that I've been having on hold or resting this whole time. So keep your working yarn to the back, and I'm going to pull out this needle and carry on across the front, like I said. Now this first stitch, I'm going to give it a good little tug because I want to make sure there's not a gap at that corner, at that needle junction. So I'm going to give that a good little tug there so that I'm drawing up the side stitches closer to the instep stitches that go across the top of the foot. And then just knit the 18 you have across here. Really, this is the same method like I mentioned earlier. It's the same method that you use for an adult sock. If I had some kind of pattern going on, I would, keep in pattern across the top of the foot. So now we're over here, we're going to do the same thing and pick up a tiny stitch in the corner. But we want to have the stitches that we pick up, we want to have them all be on, we want to have them all together going around. These stitches are going to continue to be separate, okay? If you're using double points, you could have stitches here on one needle and then half of these and then your other side, and you would have a triangle. Or you can arrange them if you're using 5. You can arrange them however you like. Let me pull on this other cable to get my needle back up here where I want that to be. Then I'm going to draw this through and around and use this to pick up the strand right here that's in the middle. And again, I want to knit through the back of this so that I'm twisting it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on my left needle so that then I can knit into the back of it and do that little bit of a twist. Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do is look for that next chain edge, which is going to be right there. I find this right side of the heel flap to be easier to see the chain edges and to pick them up. To me, it just seems a little easier than on the left side. I don't know why. So again, you can tell that on my left fingers are kind of working that fabric, manipulating that back and forth to make it easier to knit into those chain edge stitches. Since I'm using a super long cable, this is easier. Now this is going to feel a little bit tight. This is going to feel a little tight here at this top corner, but all you're going to do now is knit across, and you're just going to start knitting in the round. Knit across here, knit in the round, and we're going to start decreasing our gussets so that we get back down to our original cast on number. So for me, I cast on 36 stitches. Now I have way more than 36 right now because obviously we picked up all the stitches for the heel flap, and we have a lot more than 36. Let me show you what this looks like when it's finished. So let's see, this one shows it pretty clearly. So right now what we're doing is we've picked up all these stitches across here. We've knitted across the back. We've picked up all these. We've knitted across the front. So now we have this big circumference. And we need to do our decreases for the gusset, so we end up back with the number that we started with here. So we're creating this gusset line, this decrease line right here. So that's pretty straightforward. We're just going to knit all the way down the side of the heel flap on the left side until we get to 3 stitches before the end of this group of stitches here, or 3 stitches before the end of the needle, whether that's DPNs or magic loop, either way. So then we're going to knit 2 together, knit 1. And the reason that you can remember this pretty easily is because you want your decreases to lean toward the foot, right? Toward the foot. So we have the leg knitted here, and we've got our foot that's going to be created here. So we want our decreases to lean away from the leg. So I do a knit 2 together here, which is a right leaning decrease. Then I'm simply going to knit across the instep stitches, just plain. Then we'll do another decrease on the other side. Okay, I am arranging my magic loop again, and it feels awkward to have your heel flap stitches, the back of the heel, and this other side of the heel flap all mashed together in one, and then your instep stitches are by themselves. But that's all right. It'll lessen and feel less awkward as you continue decreasing away these extra gusset stitches. So now we're going to knit 1 and slip, slip, knit, so that we do a left leaning decrease. So slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, and then you're going to want to knit those through the back loop. And then just carry on knitting all the way around again. That is your decrease round. Now we want to alternate our decrease round with a plain round each time, so that we end up with that nice 45-degree angle. So that's the ratio is 1 to 1. 1 decrease round to 1 plain round. So you can put a stitch marker at the center in the back if you want as a beginning of the round marker. I don't tend to do that just because I've knitted enough. I can read my knitting and I can be able to tell whether this coming up is going to be a decrease round or a plain round. So I'll show you what I mean here when I get to the end of this needle. All right, when I get to 3 to the end, am I going to decrease or is this a plain round? Well, I can tell that the last one was a decrease because I have these 2 little stitches right here. You can see those have been knitted together. So I know that now this must be a plain round. So I'm just going to knit right on by and carry on. You can make little tally marks on a post-it note if that's easier for you, but you'll get used to where you can just see what's going on and read your knitting and be able to tell what's going on there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to knit across these 18 stitches on the front of the instep. All right, I've done that, and now I'm shuffling my magic loop around so I can carry on with my knitting going up the other side of my heel flap. And again, can I tell if this is a decrease round? You know, if I get interrupted and I have to sit this down and go do something or answer the phone or whatever, if I get interrupted, I need to be able to tell if this is a decrease round or a plain round. I can look at this and tell that there's 2 loops here on the base of this stitch, and it's leaning left, and I can tell that that was a decrease round last time. So I'm just going to knit right on by. Okay, so now I'm on a decrease round on this next one. So I'm just going to carry on knitting decrease round alternated with plain rounds until I have reduced my number of stitches on this back side to 18, same as my top of the foot or instep stitches. All right, then we'll go from there. All right, I have finished the gusset decreases, and now I have 18 stitches on the instep and on the bottom on the sole. So you can see your gusset line right there, nice and tidy. Now all I'm going to do is knit 10 rows in the round. So from the point at which I stop my decreases until we're going to start the toes, only 10 rounds. So let's go and do that. All right, I've knitted 10 rounds from when I finished my gusset decreases, and now I'm ready to start rounding the toe, decreasing for the toe. So again, we just want to decrease equally on both sides. So this is the beginning of my round, and I know that because I have my tail right here. So that was what I designated it to be. You can have the beginning of the round wherever you want. But I'm just going to knit one, and then I want my decreases to slant inward on each end of the needle. So I'm going to do my slip, slip, knit, slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, and then knit these 2 through the back loop. Then I'm just going to knit across the top of the foot, or the top of the toe, rather, until I get to 3 before the end of the needle. And don't worry, I'll show you this again. Then we're just going to decrease, do a right leaning decrease. So that's just a knit 2 together, knit 1. And it's as simple as that. And then we're going to turn our work to the back, to the sole stitches. Let me zoom in a little for you. Knit 1, slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, knit through the back loop, which for me, I just take my left needle in underneath so that my working right hand needle is behind. Knit through the back loop. Whoops. And then just knit across until you have 3 left on the needle. Knit 2 together, knit 1. So the formula that I like to use for these little socks is just alternating a decrease round and a plain round like we did before until you have decreased down to half the number of stitches that you started with. So again, knit till the last 3, knit 2 together, knit 1. And again, I'll have this all written out for you in the PDF. But we started out with 18 stitches on each needle, or 36 altogether. So I'm going to continue doing these decreases until I have 9 or 10 on each side. Probably 10, because it's an even number, and you're decreasing evenly all the way around. So we're going to have 10. Then we will decrease every round until we have the number we want to graft and close up the toe. And I think what I did on these others is 6. I think I did 6 stitches. You can certainly just go down to like 4 stitches and then take your darning needle all the way through and pull it up like a purse string, but I do like to Kitchener it. I think it looks nice, and I'll show you how. So I'm going to continue with these decreases. Again, we're going to alternate a decrease round and a plain round until we get to half the number of stitches, or 10 on each needle. Now that I am down to 10 stitches on each needle, I'm going to decrease every round and go ahead and close this up even more quickly. So you can do a plain round after the, the 10th decrease, or, when you have 10 stitches, or not. I'm going to go ahead and just carry on for another couple of rounds, and then I'll be down to 6. Then I'll show you how we're going to Kitchener. Now I also have a much slower, more specific video about doing the Kitchener stitch, and I'll link to that down below in the video description if you'd rather go a little more slowly on that. If you haven't Kitchenered or grafted in that way before, you might find that helpful to go a little slower for that particular technique. All right, I have finished my last couple of decrease rounds and I have 6 stitches left on each needle, and I've left a relatively long tail. The general rule of thumb before grafting is you want to leave a tail that's long enough to equal about 4 times the circumference of whatever you're going to be grafting together. So I'm just going to get my darning needle here and thread that. So there's usually a couple of setup rows for the Kitchener stitch. I don't care for that, so I tend to skip those. So what I do is, since the yarn is coming off the back needle, or the needle that has the purl, the inside toward me, and I can tell the yarn's coming off right there, I'm going to start on the front. So I'm going to go into this first stitch as if to knit, and I'm just going to go ahead and slip that off. Knit right on off, and then purl the next one. Leave that one on. Then we're going to move to the back needle. I'm going to purl into that one, and you know you're going to purl into that one because you can see the purl bump. That's how I remember it, so I know what to do next. I'm going to purl into that one and go ahead and slip that off and knit into the next and leave that one on. Now I'm moving back to the front needle. I'm going to knit into that because the knit side is toward me on that particular stitch. Knit into that. Go ahead and slip that stitch off and purl into the next. So we're working 2 stitches at a time on each needle. So now I'm moving to the back needle and I purl into that, take that one off, knit into the next, and leave that one on. And you can give that a little tug. It, gathers things up nicely. So now I'm going to go in and knit this one, knit, take it off, purl, leave it on. Into the back, we purl, slip it off, knit, leave it on. Knit, slip it off, knit off, purl on. Whoops. Yep, there we go. Purl off. You guessed it. Knit on. Knit on. Okay. Okay. Knit on. Or sorry, knit off, purl on. And then on the back needle, it gets a little awkward when we're lacking too many stitches because we want to make sure we don't drop anything. But we're going to purl that off. The next stitch we're going to leave on until we finish our sequence in the front. So I know we don't have a stitch to go purl into, but that's okay. Just knit that off. And then we're going to go into here and purl this one off. All right. Now what I like to do is, you have this little sticky outy ear thing. That's okay. I'm just going to go into the base of that with my darning needle. And I'm wiggling this so I make sure I don't catch any of the stitches inside. I just want that to be freewheeling inside there. So you can see where it's come out. I'm just going to tuck that back in. Leave that like that. Leave that threaded. And I'm going to gently turn this inside out so that I can pull this through to the inside. Give that a little tug and it'll suck that corner right down in. Okay, now all we need to do is weave in our ends and we're done. Yay! Isn't it cute? It's totally cute. That's how you make a little sock. There you go. And now we have a whole bunch of them. Love it. Love it. I hope you found that tutorial helpful. I would love to see your tiny little socks on Instagram, or put the photo in the knit along in the Purl Together Ravelry group. I am deciding what the prizes will be, but I'm going to do some participation prizes just because it's fun. So tag me on Instagram, post on Ravelry, post in the Facebook group. I'd love to see your teeny little socks or any of the scraptastic loveliness that you're making. Okay. As always, thanks for watching. And again, if you're interested in a raffle ticket for the AFSP, American Foundation Suicide Prevention Afghan that I'm making, entries link is below. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope you get to put your feet up and do some knitting.